Hello, good morning, and welcome to another edition of Diaspora Weekly. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah, and you're watching us on DNT, Diaspora Network Television. I have two of the most amazing people on the face of the earth, and you're going to know why. We're going to get to them in a minute, but first, the jangle. Most of you, this is something new we're bringing in, and most of you are not going to know, so it's going to be a subject of a quiz. But the jangle, I'm going to give you the jangle. The famous Jamaican musician called Peter Tosh, he had a famous line. I don't know if any of you remember. He says, everyone wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. You know what? Nowhere in this world is that statement more true than here in Ghana. Here in Ghana, everybody wants this nation to develop. People want to go to bed and wake up in the morning and this place has turned into America. But yet nobody wants to invest the personal sacrifice that it takes to change this country. We know they want the change. How do we know that? Because they complain about the current state. So is the change going to come magically or not? You know, when we had military rule, when soldiers whipped us in line, beat people in the streets, we were all complaining that we want democratic rule. Well, now we have democratic rule. We elect our own president, our own leaders. But the people that we entrust with the responsibility of changing this country, when they want to effect that change and that change involves a little discomfort to ourselves, we complain bitterly. We're going to vote you out. We're not going to vote. Yada, yada. Listen, at some point, we have to invest the personal sacrifice that it takes to get our nation to the next level. And so if we don't want to do that, my question that I leave Ghanaians with is this. What's it going to take? You, me, and everybody who lives in this country has to give up something. And so today, for this episode, that's the jangle for you to chew on. We'll go on a short commercial break. When we come back, I'll introduce you to my guests. Stay tuned.
Hello, my name is Kofi Opon-Ochre, and I bring you NASA on DNT, a program designed to expose corruption and indiscipline in our society and advocate for the punishment of these offenders whose activities impede national development. The National Road Safety Commission indicates that Ghana loses $230 million to road accidents, with over 1,600 deaths recorded every year. In 2018, Shraj report indicated that Ghana loses 13.5 billion Ghana cedis to corruption. And United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF has also stated that Ghana loses $290 million to poor sanitation alone. This is not right. So make a date with me, and together let's name and shame the offenders of the law. NASA, see something, say something.
Hello and welcome back. This is Diaspora Weekly, and I have two of the most amazing people I've run into in a long time. Now, it's interesting I mentioned Jamaican musician. We have a couple of ladies from here that's just simply amazing. When you think of Jamaica, you think of Usain Bolt, Bob Marley, and nah. These ladies are the real icons of Jamaica, so I want you to meet them. Welcome, Lorna Blake.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Tika Cameron Taki.
Thank you for having me.
If you notice that Taki, Miss Cameron Taki is the wife of, I assume, Mr. Taki.
Yes, Mr.
And you've relocated to Ghana.
That's right.
Well, welcome. Welcome.
You.
So far, ladies, you've been here for how long now?
I've been here for about 9 days.
9 days. And you?
About 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I spoke to the both of you, right? When you were back in the States. I think you were in Canada and you were in Florida. You did a conference call, and the three of us were on the phone at the same time. But you came here earlier, right?
I came earlier.
She did.
She did.
July.
July,
End of July.
okay.
Yeah.
I went on your Facebook and you said July 18, I'm still alive. Okay.
I know.
Okay, so how has it been so far?
So so far so great. I have had the most amazing opportunities to experience the motherland.
Okay.
I'm emotional that 400 years later I get to come back here
Okay.
and experience what it is to be royalty.
Wow.
Because I did not have a real sense of that. I would see Queen Elizabeth, but I couldn't relate to her.
Right.
And she's so far removed from my reality. I couldn't relate to her. And so when people said you come from kings and queens when you're African heritage, I didn't know what that meant. So coming here and having the opportunity to do some year of return activities, visiting the palace, going to the Ashanti Palace, meeting the king.
Oh my goodness.
Meeting the paramount chief in Elmina, Cape Coast. Meeting actually a queen mother here in Accra was it was just so powerful. I all of a sudden could relate to being royalty.
Royalty. Wow.
It's empowering.
Wow. And so the royalty aspect of it, you mentioned the Ashanti Palace, and we're talking about it off the air. The Ashanti colors and the Jamaican colors. Exactly.
It's the same.
You think it's a coincidence?
No. No.
We'll get to that in a minute. Tika, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
How's your trip been so far?
You know, it's been enlightening and it's been great.
Right.
You know, we are back home.
Back
which is what I'm telling everyone. I mean, I was not born here.
Yeah.
My husband was, but my ancestors were. And I believe, although I haven't traced my roots, I deeply believe that many Jamaicans, this is where we started. So for me, it definitely is a redefining moment in my life.
Wow.
And
So you've come back to stay, but you came for a year of return, you're going to go back. And we hope at some point you change your mind and you come back to stay also. But you see, for me, born and raised here, when I leave to go to United States, I come back. Yeah, I get off the plane and go through immigration, and then fine. I come back home. It means, but for you, I wonder what it's like the first time you actually set foot on the African soil.
Yes.
What's it like?
It was like going to Jamaica.
Yes.
It was no less than that.
Really?
Yes.
When I landed, I thought I'm in Jamaica.
Okay.
So I was actually on my camera, on video, saying it feels like Jamaica. The only difference is the reggae music. And then I heard a song about welcome home.
Okay.
And that immediately
Very good.
connected.
Very
It was
good.
so powerful.
Yes.
Very good.
And then I had people coming up to me and saying, "You're so beautiful.
Wow.
You're so beautiful.
Wow.
Your husband is lucky." And they turned to my husband and said, "You're so lucky to have her."
There you go.
You
Is
know?
it feeling the same? How different is it? Because you were born in Jamaica, Westmoreland.
That's right.
And you live in Florida, so I'm sure there was a first time you set foot on American soil. Well, what's the difference between setting foot on American soil for the first time and then setting foot back at home for the first time?
It's different, and I'll tell you why. I have lived not just in the U.S. I moved from Jamaica to Canada, lived in Canada for more than 20 years, then moved to South Korea, and lived there for about 3.5 years.
Oh, South Korea.
Then lived in Panama, Central America for about 2 years. And now, so the U.S. is my fifth country.
Okay.
But Florida feels similar to Jamaica.
Okay.
Because it's not that far removed.
Okay. Yeah.
It feels, and it feels opulent.
Yeah. I went to Florida and I saw roosters roaming about.
Yes.
You don't see that anywhere in the States but Florida.
In Florida.
Wow.
And in our backyard, we've got chickens and peacocks.
Oh, wow.
And golden pheasants. Yeah.
Good.
So, it's like
so,
home.
Tika, I saw that you were talking about the food.
Yes.
You mentioned something about vegan and said, are you going to create your own? What's been the food like? You've been here 3 weeks.
Yes.
And you lived in
Canada.
And
Jamaica.
And Jamaica, okay. So what's been the food like?
Well, so the vegan thing, that was temporary. It was really me just exploring, right? And I I do like a plant-based life. I love greens. If I don't have greens on my plate, it's a challenge for me, right?
Oh God, I need to introduce you to my children.
I know my own children have a hard time eating greens, but I know, like, I love vegetables. So, in Ghana, what I found, the dishes are very, very delicious. Right? I love anything. Like, I love spinach stew. That's one of my favorites.
Oh God,
the consommé stew.
Oh, God. Be careful. I haven't eaten today,
so I won't describe too much. And plantain, and it is plantain. It's not plantain. It's a debate in my house.
Wait, what's the debate?
Because Jamaicans, we call it plantain. And Ghanaians call it plantain.
Plantain.
So my husband always gives it.
But it's the same thing.
It's essentially the same thing, right? And it's very delicious. So,
very good.
But I love the food. There's lots of options for fish.
Okay.
And we've really just been, now that we're just getting settled, we're starting to have more home cooked meals. But before it was like we were going out a lot.
All right.
But there are a lot of options.
Very
and
good.
They're all pretty delicious.
So for me, I mean, you guys are saying all these nice things. Great. You're being gracious. But I'm sure there's been some setbacks.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
What are they?
Absolutely. I think to start, the visa process to come to Ghana, it felt like I was being kept out of the country.
Okay.
And I need to backtrack and clarify that. I'm a Jamaican living outside Jamaica. I no longer have a Jamaican passport.
Okay.
So I have a Canadian passport.
Okay.
And what I found was if I was applying as a Jamaican, there would be no visa restriction.
Okay.
But applying as a Canadian in America, there was a lot of hoops to jump through.
Okay.
So, you know, that in and of itself was frustrating for me. But we did receive our visas. I was applying with my husband.
Okay.
And we did receive our visas. Within about 4 or 5 working days, it came back, which was nice.
That
was like, wow.
To be honest with you, I heard in the past trying to obtain a visa, Ghanaian visa from the embassy was a huge risk.
Yes.
So it's a breath of fresh air to hear you say that you got it in 5 days.
Yes.
Because I live in Houston, Texas, and we have an honorary consul there. And they get a lot of traffic because, and when we talk to them, say, oh no, I'm not going through Washington, I'll come through here.
Yeah.
So that was particularly refreshing to hear that you got it in 5 days.
So that was going through DC, right? But the thing is, my sons were in Canada, applying in Canada.
Okay.
And they still have not received their visas, and the tickets were bought, and we had to cancel the tickets.
Okay, so here's the thing. You applied in the United States at the embassy in Washington. You got yours in 5 days.
Yes.
At the same time, your children in Canada, where in Canada?
They're in Toronto.
Toronto. So the High Commission there.
Yes.
They applied, when has that been?
They applied around the same time.
And today they still haven't received
don't
it.
have it.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, if you're watching, hint, hint.
Something needs to give.
Yes.
Because what happens also for the Canadians, there are so many more barriers to them. It almost feels like Jamaica, the restrictions were lifted completely. The US, some restrictions, but in Canada, nothing. Nothing has lifted.
It's the same country, so it's got to be the work of the Ghana's mission there.
That's
because the policy is the same, I would imagine. Well, and even Canada is part of the Commonwealth, so if anything, Canada is supposed to be much easier.
It's not.
Okay.
It's not. And I'll share with you, I had the opportunity to meet with Rabbi Halavi, and he was sharing that the mandate has come down for things from up above, right? For things to change. But there is a sense that within the high commissions and the embassies, it hasn't yet changed.
8 months? That's a lot.
And that's what he was saying. 8 months in the year of return, and so little has shifted. And especially for the Canadians, it's almost like they're considered criminals trying to, you know,
my goodness.
it feels like it. There were so many barriers to them having to apply and to go through. And we applied for a 2-day express visa.
And still hasn't.
Nothing.
So, Tika, you know, when your name is interesting because Tika Cameron, I assume that's your maiden name.
That's right.
And then Taki, your marital name.
Yes.
So you don't mind me calling you TCT?
Whatever makes you comfortable.
So Tika,
Yes.
what's been yours? I mean, with Lorna, it's been application process. What's been yours?
Well, you know what? Coming into Ghana, we're very optimistic. I'll say this, right? My husband and I, we're very optimistic about what we can do here.
Okay.
A lot of the sentiments that we hear from returnees, like ourselves, those who, you know, were living abroad and have now come back to Ghana, is that it can get very frustrating, right? And we're doing our best to just really continue to maintain that bright side picture of things, because we recognize coming in, yes, it's not going to be Canada.
Right.
It's not going to be wherever other developed countries that we've been to. This is Ghana, right? And Ghana's at a unique time right now where there's so much opportunity for development, but the attitudes have to change.
The attitudes.
The attitudes and the mindset have to change.
It's interesting you say that. Remember the jangle that I just gave?
Yes.
I didn't speak to you before I did that.
That's right.
But it's interesting that we're talking about the same thing.
Yes, you're absolutely
so
correct.
what are some of the attitudes that you've run into
that are limiting, frustrating? Well, it's one of the, you mentioned it, one of the ideas that there's nothing good here. You know, I have a tendency to ask a lot of questions to people when I meet them. You know, I take a bit of Uber sometimes, and I meet people on the street, and I ask them, you know, what is it like being in Ghana? And for a lot of Ghanaians, and it's not to, you know, to belittle their experience, because I know, you know, people live there, everybody has their own unique experience, but it's like, what is it like to live in Ghana? And I don't necessarily hear that it's a great thing. I want to go to the States. I want to go to Germany. I want to go somewhere else. And I start to share my experience being somebody who's been outside and coming back and saying, you know what, but there's a lot of gems here. There are a lot of things that you could potentially be doing here. There are a lot of ways that Ghana can become a bright light.
And they don't believe you.
They don't believe it.
We go through that all the time. I mean, especially for me, it's like I lived here, and believe you me, when I was here, when somebody told me that, I didn't believe it either. And then I left to go there, and when I come back and say the same thing, they think I'm a liar. I'm selfish. I don't want them to go. That's why I'm saying that.
And I get that sense as
well.
Wow. Yeah.
So we're going to go into a quick break. When we come back, we'll deal with some of the experiences that you bring in to us. This is Diaspora Weekly with Jermaine and Nkrumah. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Nanansa, and you're watching Homeland: The Story of the Returnee, where we dive into the perspective of the diaspora in and out of Ghana. It's fun, engaging, and motivational.
I think Ghana is a wonderful place. I love Ghana. I truly do.
We need our diasporans for our country to develop to where it should be.
Hey! Come on, turn around. Turn around, let me see.
Make a date with me right here on DNT every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Homeland. Brain drain, brain gain.
Welcome back. Diaspora Weekly with Jermaine and Nkrumah. I have with me Lorna Blake and Tika Cameron Taki. Ladies, we talked a lot about your experiences, how you came and what do you find in the place. And I think, you know what, I'm hearing more positive stuff than negative. That's a good thing. I think you guys are trying to be very nice, and we appreciate that. The next phase we want to talk about, I want to start with why Ghana. You had plenty of African countries. Yours, I think we already know you're married to a Ghanaian, so hey. But why Ghana?
It's such a good one because I had the opportunity to visit East Africa, Kenya, about 6 years ago. And I really enjoyed, you know, getting to be on the ground. It was my first trip to the continent, and it felt great. And I felt welcomed and appreciated and acknowledged. but I still had a feeling that, you know, it's a knowing that Jamaicans do, that we're from West Africa, we're from Ghana.
Oh, really?
So I wanted to, yeah, absolutely, I wanted to explore.
I wonder where that comes from.
It comes up ever so often because we have a knowing or some awareness that we're associated with the Ashantis. Jamaicans do.
Really?
Really. Jamaicans have that. So it's interesting that last September I was in Canada to bury my stepfather. So, you know, under those circumstances, Tika and I met.
Okay.
And Tika shared with me her passion and her vision for bringing something of value to the continent, more specifically to Ghana. And so we started to explore what we could do together. I was on board immediately. I was like, you know, really, this is gonna be exciting.
How these things happen.
It just, so it started to coalesce.
Yeah.
And we made a decision that we would do a virtual summit for Black History Month in February.
Okay. Oh, for the year?
This year.
This year, okay.
And we did it. And we actually brought together some guest experts and we interviewed them. And it turned out great. It was really very impactful. And piggybacking on that, she knew she was coming in July, and it was my plan to be here in August. And so we planned to create a summit or a conference where we would bring some of our skill sets. Leadership.
So you all met this year?
We actually met for the first time 3 years ago at a John Maxwell conference.
Right? Yes, and that's what the next thing that I knew. You knew you were coming to Ghana, and then the two of you meet. Meet and you hit it off. Because I'm looking at the two of you, and it seems like you've known each other for a long time. So Lorna talks about Ghana and the Jamaican, the passion. I'm hearing a bit of a patois thing. You're going to teach me how to speak that.
We can teach you. I can teach you.
Really? You speak patois?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes,
And both you were born there, so you speak the patois. All right. So you're coming to Ghana. What are you bringing with you?
Oh my gosh. You want to touch on that, Tika?
Sure. Well, I'm bringing my family.
Okay. That's good.
I'm bringing my little ones. Really, what it is, it's heart. Right? I have a heart for this country. I have a heart for the continent because I see how I'm connected to it, but I see where we've been shafted so much in this world. It was one of the things that I always used to say to my husband would frustrate me is, you know, I'd look at all of the, you know, you'd look at economic reports, you'd look at how people spoke about Africa, you would never see, you know, the right statistics, if any. You would never see the right messaging, right? It would just be there's just pure negativity, there's Ebola, there's AIDS, there's, you know, it's just all negative. And then when I had an opportunity to come to Ghana with my husband for the first time in 2011, it was an awakening for me, right? And even back in 2011.
This is not what I've been seeing on TV.
Right. It's completely, there's a disconnect. Like, this is not what I see on TV about Ghana. And my husband would tell me all the wonderful things. Like, when we first met, he was like, I would love to go home. He would love to go back home, but he didn't necessarily know that I would want to.
Okay, so now you guys tell me about the Jamaican-Ghana connection thing.
Yeah.
And then you marry a Ghanaian.
That's right.
Did you seek him out, or it's like, okay, so if we're connected to Ghana, I'm gonna marry a Ghanaian?
No, that's just how it was designed.
Really?
That's just how it was designed.
So that was a good serendipity right there.
It just was, yeah.
Very good. And so you guys brought in this conference. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So this conference really was our brainchild, right?
Yes.
She's a real creative, and so we were talking about what we could bring, you know, as we get to the ground. And so she got here. I don't know if she connected with Tent Makers Ghana first.
Yes, I did. I started with Tent Maker.
And then the idea, she was saying, you know, we could go on our own, but John Maxwell is a well-known name.
So then John Maxwell thing, I have to admit, I don't know much about it. What's it about?
Maxwell is a leadership
Yeah.
guru.
Okay.
So yeah, John is the #1 leadership guru
Okay.
as per Inc. magazine, and he's actually a Christian as well.
Okay.
So his foundation is in Christian ministry. He's well known in the United States, but also in Africa. There's a very strong appetite for his curriculum. But his material that he teaches on, that he speaks on, is leadership and personal growth and development.
Okay.
So Lorna and I, that's how we initially became connected, because we are both certified to deliver
okay.
John's content
All right.
globally.
So how did it go? I know it was August 13th, right?
Yes, it was a couple days ago now, and the feedback that we received was that it went very well. We had a really amazing time.
Okay.
Everything came together, and we had impact, which was our goal and our mission.
Okay.
And it's just a spark of what we know is to come.
So,
Yes.
so you're going to continue.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Feedback suggests that
Okay.
people want more.
They
There
need
was a
more.
sense they didn't want to leave.
That's right.
That you see, that's where I was getting to, because if you have the misfortune of being imparting knowledge or skill to people who already have those skills, you feel so I don't know what word to use. You feel so valueless.
Yes.
But in this case, you
That's
can
right.
tell that you actually added value.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes,
It was.
absolutely.
So that's
Amazing.
good. You talk about empowerment,
Yes.
and you mostly focus on creative entrepreneurship development.
Well, both. I do
Both,
creative
okay.
entrepreneur development as well as leadership
Leadership.
development. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you've had this conference. You've gotten a lot of feedback. What next?
People are saying they want a 2-day or a 3-day conference.
Okay.
We also heard from someone who is in HR who said the companies need what
Yes,
you're offering here. She said, we don't have anything like this here. And she said, we need to get some sponsors. She says, I'm going to look at how I can move some people to create sponsorships to bring you back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because this it's got to be filtered into the companies
Yes.
so that more people can learn about this.
You see, when we talk of leadership, and as a former college lecturer in the business department, I taught leadership. Okay, and when you come here, and when you talk, leadership and culture are intertwined.
For sure.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
And what's good leadership? What's considered good leadership in the Western world may be considered a weakling. So how do you marry the two?
It's a fascinating one.
That's a very good question.
It's a good question because as we covered some of the different aspects with the folk who were in the room, you know, we talked about accountability,
Okay.
right? The importance of being accountable, because
Yeah.
for a lot of us,
Wait,
we're trying to lead ourselves.
Accountability, what is that? We don't know. Accountable
Yes.
to the people that I lead? Are you kidding? No, I don't
being
have to be accountable to them.
Well, there it is. So
it starts
telling
with you,
them,
yeah.
leading yourself first. We talk
Yes.
about leadership as leading yourself first.
Yes.
That's the key component right
Yes.
there. And leading yourself first, you've got to be accountable to somebody.
Exactly.
So creating peer leadership is the key right there.
Yes.
And then we talked about defining moments in your
Okay.
life, becoming aware of some of those things that define you. What are
Exactly.
those? Sometimes it's your pain and your loss. It's those stories of loss and pain
define you.
that define you.
Yeah.
And so becoming aware of what those are for you.
So you have to know yourself.
You
first.
have to know yourself
Yes.
in order to grow yourself. That's
Exactly.
actually a John Maxwell quote, isn't
Yeah.
it?
So, Tika, what role does leadership play in entrepreneurship? Now, before you go there, if I have an idea
Yes.
that is a good one,
Yes.
it can make money,
Yes.
but I don't have the leadership skill, do I have to be the leader of that idea?
Of the idea?
Of propagating the idea into a business? Because yours,
Yes.
I see there's a lot of ink on your page about leadership, entrepreneurship,
Yes.
development.
Yes.
And I'm saying that I may be a creative person,
Yes.
but I'm not a born leader.
Yes.
How do I do it?
You can develop those skills, or you could work with others who have those
Okay.
skill sets,
Okay.
right? So one of the challenges in entrepreneurship is sometimes we don't know which of our skill sets we necessarily should be using, because the entrepreneur tends to be the jack of all, well, in Jamaica we say the head cook and the bottle washer and the bottle washer.
Head cook and the bottle washer.
So they want to do everything, right? But as an entrepreneur, you have to know where your strengths lie.
Okay.
What are the things that you're very good at? If you are the creative and that's what you like to do, but you have the vision, you have the idea, then it's up to you to figure out who else can I partner with, can I align with, who can strengthen me and do the things that I'm not as strong at in my business.
So how do you impart leadership, contemporary leadership into someone who has a culture-induced mental block?
That's so great.
I am a Ghanaian. This is how we do it in Ghana.
Right.
And you're asking me to lead the way the white man does. Maybe it would not work with the Ghanaians that I work.
Right.
How do you convince them otherwise?
Because, may I?
Go for it. Go for it.
Well, because leadership isn't necessarily about, a racial, it's not necessarily, the way that we envision or speak of leadership, it's more along the lines of stewardship. It's about servanthood. It's about recognizing that if you are going to be a leader, you are serving others.
Situational leadership?
Situational leadership, and you've got to be very aware of who you are as an individual.
So, if I'm hearing you guys correctly, you cannot be a leader without knowing yourself.
That's absolutely true.
You can try, but it's not going to work out very well.
You heard that.
Yeah.
You cannot be a leader if you don't know yourself.
Yes.
If you don't know your limitations.
Yes.
You're thrusted into leadership positions, but you don't know your limitation. You don't know what makes you tick.
Yes.
What gets you angry. You don't know yourself.
Yes.
And they put you in a situation where you have to lead people. Do we have some of that in Ghana? That's a question for all of us to answer. We'll go on a quick break. We'll be right back. This is Diaspora Weekly.
You log up Hello Entertainment Box.
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 My name is Novi. The name is Phil.
Iman is the name.
Laugh
and learn.
What is the biggest animal in the world?
King Kong.
What's the meaning of the I in iPhone?
iTunes. What is Facebook? It's a book that you see it on your face.
What is the last book of the Bible?
Methodist.
Your father is a landlord. What will you be?
Land commission.
House owner.
Land Rover.
What do we do at the grocery shop?
They play football.
Who is Santa Claus?
Teacher will check you.
This is Diaspora Weekly with Jermaine Nkrumah. And I have with me here Lorna Blake and TCT. I have this thing about giving people that you have to forgive me.
No, it's okay.
Tika Cameron Taki is so beautiful.
It really
is. TCT. Well, welcome back. Listen, when we left, we were talking about leadership.
Yes.
That's an area that Africa as a whole needs the most. Leadership. How do you see leadership, not at the corporate level, but now at the national leadership? From afar. I'm sure you don't know the intricacies, the details, but from afar, when you see our leaders, what do you see?
Gosh, I'm going to share with you that seeing the Ghanaian president, I see somebody who is representing the continent in a very powerful and inspiring way.
Interesting. Very
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think in a world where we have presidents like Trump you know, and I'm saying that with some level of objectivity because I'm not
This
as
is where
angry.
I gotta. Did you mention what name was that?
I
again?
just mentioned Trump, right? In a world where we have somebody like Trump as president of the U.S., the Ghanaian president
it's a breath of fresh air.
shines like a beam of bright light in the world.
Wow.
And when we hear him stepping up and taking responsibility for what happened 400 years ago and inviting us back here, and you see Ghana leading the way. So maybe there are things that aren't going so great, we don't know, but what we see is somebody who is stepping up to the plate and saying, we will take responsibility. And that's one of the key pieces that I had talked about in our conference last Tuesday, is that we must take responsibility. That there are times when we may see something, somebody has said something that hurt us, and we're upset about it. And because we're so upset, we don't actually see our role. So we come from a place of arrogance, and where in fact what we need to do is to come from a place of humility. And what I'm seeing is that the Ghanaian president is embodying this. He's saying, we know that we had a role in this, and we are taking responsibility for our role in this. And because of that, we're going to step up to the plate and open the doors and welcome you home.
You know, this wasn't part of my list of questions, but the point that you raise is so important. Tika, I'm going to transition to you for you to take what Lorna said. And transplant it into America, because it's the same thing, and here's why. Obviously, this president wasn't around when the slave trade was happening, but he took responsibility for it. What does that say about the current whites who now, when black people are talking about racism, their attitude is, I didn't enslave you, so it's not my responsibility. What's the difference there?
It's ownership. It's
you see the difference. Here is a president who was obviously not around 400 years ago, had nothing to do with it. Say, you know what, we recognize some wrongs were done, so we're going to make it right. In America, we're seeing something entirely different, a.k.a. Trump. Tika, talk to me about it. What am I missing here?
You're not missing much. The facts are the facts. I mean, without being too political about, because my feelings about Trump are very similar in the sense that I don't see empathy, which is something we really need in leadership, is empathy. I don't see an empathetic president. Whereas in Ghana, I too believe, and I'm inspired by the current administrator or the current president, because I see the initiatives that he and his team and his administration are trying to unveil. I mean, the population you're going to have people who are going to always say, things are not going the way that they should be. But if you look at the overall big picture, a lot is happening. And there is a general understanding that Ghana cannot do this by itself. Ghana needs the diaspora. Africa needs the diaspora. And let's engage. Let's have conversations. Let's create initiatives. Let's make it easier for us to relate to one another so that we can have progress.
Okay, so there's a lot of talk about reparation in America. Is this Ghana's form of reparation? The year of return?
Perhaps.
I feel that.
Perhaps.
I feel that.
In some way.
Right.
I feel that.
And to hear the both of you talk, I don't see a material reparation. Sometimes it just takes an admission, acknowledge, empathy.
That's exactly the point. I shared that last Tuesday. That when we, the ways that we give and receive criticism, right? It requires acknowledgement.
Which doesn't cost you a penny.
It doesn't. That's it. So sometimes we think we're going to have to materially, compensate somebody for something, but just being willing to acknowledge, because every one of us as humans, we have a need to be acknowledged first. So just the acknowledgement starts, it opens the doors for something to change, for healing to take place. And that's what we're about.
Okay.
We need healing more than anything else.
Okay.
This 400 years
that
we've been out
is
there
powerful stuff.
Is healing.
And you guys
that
have
we
been
need.
to the Elmina Castle, I mean.
Oh, yes.
Okay, you toured that,
absolutely. Oh my goodness.
I've been a couple times.
Wow. Okay, so now we've talked about, you know, interesting, we have a show here in, at DNT called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And that's just to say that in every situation, there's a good, the bad, and the ugly. When I mentioned leadership in Africa, you started with the good, probably the ultra good. I'm sure there is an example of leadership that you say, maybe Africa doesn't need it. Not mentioning them, but do you want to go there? I'm sure Africa has plenty of these leadership issues. What have you seen?
In Africa in general, what I would say is definitely not dealing with the issue of corruption the way that it needs to be dealt with. Okay. Not dealing with lack of integrity the way it needs to be dealt with. Not dealing with lawlessness the way that it needs to be dealt with. Right? If the leader can't control, not even control, but if the leader can't take responsibility or help those who need to take responsibility to do that, then the citizens are not going to follow.
I'll touch back on that in just a minute, but I want to also say, what about leaders who don't want to leave? Arrogant to themselves, the lifelong leadership of their respective countries. Are they the smartest people in that country?
No, it's self-serving leadership.
So,
it doesn't serve the
so
people.
what do you have to say to those people?
I mean, you've got to know when it's time to fold up.
That's right.
You know, there is that song from Kenny Rogers. Know when to hold up. Know when to fold up.
What's that? Is that the Gambler, right?
Yeah, the Gambler.
There you go.
Know when to walk away and know when to run.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So that's what I would say. You got to know.
See, on this corruption issue, on this, we've been scratching our head all this while. Look, it's so tied to culture. It's amazing. Look, let's just say the three of us are buddies. We're very good friends, right? Your child commits a crime, excuse me, and I'm the judge. I'm supposed to administer the punishment. But I know you. This is my child. In here in Africa, your child is my child. Yes, takes a village, the mentality. So this judge is now because I know this child, and it makes it even worse when you come to see me at home. Oh, you know he's a good boy, and then I don't administer the necessary punishment. That's a form of corruption.
Absolutely.
But where we live, it doesn't matter, or at least on paper, or for the most part, it really doesn't matter. That punishment is going to... And so when you look at our culture, how do we overcome that?
Yes.
To administer the punishment to serve as a deterrent, to institute or bring about the lawfulness and fight corruption. How do we do that?
Great.
I personally believe that it takes each individual to have a standard of integrity that can withstand any challenge. Right? Like if we walk with that understanding that, you know what, right is right and wrong is wrong. Right? Despite our familiar relations and you know, our friendships, recognizing that right is right and wrong is wrong, and we're willing, if we're put in the highest office, we're willing to follow, you know, the statutes, or we're willing to essentially hold up the office that we have been put into.
But that's asking us to give up a part of our culture, though.
That's true.
Yeah.
It may be so, but you know what I think? I think your culture...
Now, granted, my line of questioning, I'm not condoning, but it's what we, because as a people, we have to at some point say, this may be our culture, but it's not working for us. Can we
That's
work away from it?
Yeah, and the point I'd want to make on that is, while it's true that, you know, your culture, in the Ghanaian culture, it takes a village, it also takes a village, or it takes one to start standing up, right? Taking a stand for what is right. I'm going to give you an example of that. My child, I remember taking him to a place. I took him to art school or summer camp, art camp in Canada. He was like, I don't know, 6 years old. And after camp, took him to a store. And while we were in the store, I purchased something and he walked out with something that I didn't buy. And I didn't know until I got far up the street. I walked him back. He was bawling. Tears, Mommy, please, don't take me back. I don't want to go. It was a Chinese store. I walked him in and I showed the man the thing that he had taken with him. And I had him apologize and hand it over to the man.
So what if the punishment in this case was jail time?
It would have been perfect. What I feel that it's an opportunity for us to teach them consequences.
Yes.
You know, that's one of the key pieces that I think it's true in Jamaica, it's true in Ghana, it's true in many other parts of the world where we don't want our children to face consequences. And if we start them out like that, you know, even at an early age, right, start teaching them consequences, then later on we can avoid the bigger problems. So I think that's
over
something
here,
to keep in mind.
Over here, if you allow that child to face jail time because you want to be the first one to stand up, you'll be, excuse my language, considered the biggest fool ever for not taking advantage to protect your child.
But somebody has to be considered a fool.
Yes,
right? Because that's the thing that we're faced with right now. You talked about Peter Tosh and Bob Marley and Marcus Garvey, right?
Exactly.
And Malcolm X and Queen
Everybody
Nanny.
wants to go to heaven.
Nobody wants to actually be the one in the firing line. But somebody has to do it. So if we want to stay and just be part of the group where we're accepted and we conform, that's okay. But it's not going to get us the progress that we're seeking.
Wow.
That's what we need.
We need revolution.
I'm telling you, we can go on and on and on. This, remember this line: everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. At some point, someone has to be willing to say, I'm going to be the first one to die so all of us can go to heaven.
Yes.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Let me guess, you're probably wondering, another talk show? What could they possibly have to talk about?
Relationships, gossip, or entertainment?
What if we bring it all to you in the good, the bad, and the ugly way?
Yes, you heard that right. We're bringing you the latest stories from around the world and right here in Ghana. We come with our unique backgrounds and beliefs.
But when we come together, we put all our wild thoughts and concerns on the table.
So sit back, relax, as we bring you
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Every weekday at 12 and 5 p.m., DNT Newsroom brings you the most topical, fact-based, and up-to-date news from Ghana and around the world.
Politics, business, sports, and news from the diaspora, all covered in this comprehensive news update.
If it matters, DNT Newsroom will have it covered.
DNT News, be informed.
Welcome back. This is Diaspora Weekly with Jermaine and Nkrumah. I'm joined here by Lorna Blake and Tika Cameron Tackett, TCT. Before we left, we're talking about someone taking the lead. And you see, it strikes me, in talking about leadership. Leadership is not all about someone who's been appointed or assigned a certain position. Someone can come from nowhere and say, look, I'll be the first to sacrifice and say, if my son does something wrong, I'll be the first in line to say, take him to jail to teach him a lesson. But here's the thing. If I do it, if I take the chance, put my head on a chopping block, and my son goes to jail, and it doesn't change anything, everything goes on just the way it does, then I pay the price, but we didn't get any rewards. Should I do that?
I believe to every action, there is always going to be a reaction.
Okay.
I'm not one to believe that nothing is going to come of it.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm really clear that as we set an intention, there is going to be something, right? There's going to be a result.
Okay.
And so if there is a situation like that, I believe that there is going to be the consequence. It will pay off. It will pay off.
Maybe the institutions have to be strong enough before that one person makes the sacrifice. Because currently, if the institutions are where they are, and you see in Africa, whenever I hear the word, oh, he's a strong man, I cringe. I don't believe. You're not a strong man if you have the gun and the people don't have a gun and you're bullying them. You're not. That's not strength. Okay.
That's right.
But it seems like in Africa, we seem to believe the hardline guy. Oh, this guy asked for this man doing this. I mean, if you do this, because we're so focused on the individual, we never really build the institution. So what's it going to take, Tika, to build our institutions? What's it going to take?
Well, okay, it's going to take good leadership. All comes back to leadership. But it's also going to be a recognition that, okay, yes, you need to build your institutions, but where are the resources for those institutions? If you want your police force and you want your administrations to actually function, you've got to be willing to put your money where your mouth is, kind of.
Oh my goodness!
Right, put your money where your mouth is.
Tika, we have about 5 minutes left, and you raised up an hour-long discussion.
Sorry.
Because these resources.
Yes.
I'm telling you, everywhere you go in Ghana, they'll tell you first, and you bring an initiative. Oh, we don't have the money for it. But guess what? Let a conference occur in Germany that 2 people can go and represent Ghana and bring back enough information. Everybody want to go. And now instead of 2, you have 10 people, all of whom are riding business class. They'll go back, they'll go to that conference, come back. Oh, we don't have money. Meanwhile, that place you went to, the hosts themselves rode to that place on a bus.
That's
okay?
Right. That's right.
And so, when I ask you about institution, it still came down to leadership.
Yes.
And stewardship.
And stewardship.
And stewardship, because when the resources are not being used properly, it goes back to, are you being a good steward of the funds that you've been entrusted to?
Wow. So, in the final minutes that we have, my question to each of you, you have relocated. You're not going back anytime soon.
That's the plan.
But on this trip, when you get on that plane, what are you taking back with you?
A lot. I'm taking back a greater sense of identity, a greater sense of empowerment. I'm taking back energy. I'm taking back just a sense that this is home and that I'm welcome here and that there's more opportunity to do good here. There's so much, endless opportunities and possibilities.
Wow. And I take it you're coming back.
Yes.
If you don't come back, I'm coming to
Florida.
And drag you.
She has no choice.
I have no choice.
Yeah. Well, that's really brilliant. What about you, Tika? What do you, if you get on a plane, even if you're going back, what are you taking with you?
It's interesting that you say that, because my mission is to encourage others like myself who have gone or have been in other parts of the world and who have a heart for Africa, who have a heart for Ghana, to recognize that there are opportunities here.
Home.
This is home. And if we are willing to work together collectively, diasporans with Africans, that we can really transform our continent. So I'm taking a message of hope and a message of, transformation. This is a time for transformation, and we cannot sit and be complacent. We cannot sit and be apathetic. We can't sit and be frustrated. We have to say, you know what, sure, there are challenges, but let me see what I can do.
Do you know what they'll tell you?
What's that?
My colleagues, the number one complaint is that when they come back and they want to break the change, the resistance force is so powerful that it's like, oh no, this is not going to work here. And after hitting your head in walls over and over and again, you just pack your bag and leave. Do we see a chance of that?
I see it as recognizing that change sometimes happens within chaos.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes when the most resistance is apparent is when the tide is about to turn.
That's when the breakthrough happens.
Right? So sometimes you're 3 feet from gold.
Okay.
Right? Something is about to break and you give up in that moment.
Okay.
So don't give up.
Wow.
Don't give
Don't
up.
give up.
And,
hang on.
Yeah, and I would also say is build your tribe of people who have that similar mindset and who have that similar willingness, and support each other as you're going through those struggles, because it's going to happen. I hear it from some of the returnees as well. You're going to get frustrated.
There's been
You're
a lot
going to
of
want to
success
quit.
stories.
Yeah, but there's people
and so
who
just like restaurants.
Yes.
If you go to a restaurant 10 days, or let's admit it to 9 days, have brilliant service. The 10th day you get a bad service.
Yeah.
Oh, that restaurant is no good. We always focus on the negative. But I'm telling you, for all the frustrated guys who went back, there are hundreds who are here toughing it out, making it work.
Absolutely.
And can I say something else? And while we are giving up, others who are not like us are taking advantage.
Somebody sat on this chair made a statement. He said, if we don't take care, when Ghanaians are ready to come back, they'll come back and rent apartment from the Turkish and the Chinese.
Yes.
We're going to wrap this up, and I'll give you a minute to look in the camera and give me one statement, profound statement for the diasporans and one statement for Ghanaians. Starting with you, Lorna.
Diasporans. Yes. we have a tendency to we want things easy, right? We all want to come to a place where the red carpet is rolled out and, we have all the resources and everything working like in North America or in some other parts of the world, in the more developed world. But we have to recognize that there is so much opportunity for growth when we can come and help build something. So that's a message for the diasporans. Come and help build. And don't be so quick to dismiss and go away frustrated. Take your time and help to create something better. If you want better, help to create it.
Very good. And for you, for the message for your Ghanaian hosts.
My Ghanaian hosts. Well, thank you for having me here in Ghana. Ghana is a beautiful country, and sometimes the grass looks greener on the other side. Oftentimes it does, especially if you haven't seen the other side. But I can assure you, Ghana is a place where, as a black person, a black woman, somebody who was a descendant of slaves, I can tell you there's no other place where I feel more at home. And if you can understand and recognize the value of being in a place where you are, everything that you need is here, because everything the world needs is in Ghana and in Africa. All the resources the world needs is right here. If you're willing to see that, and if you're willing to see your own value and worth as an African, as a human being in Africa, then you're going to value Ghana the way that I perhaps do. So I invite you to see what it is, take advantage of the beauty that you have at home. And I'm not suggesting you don't go and explore, perhaps you go and visit another place, but recognize that when you visit, that there's so much more at home that is wonderful.
Wow. Tika. Thank you, Lorna.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, it's
wow.
my pleasure. Thank you.
Viewers, this has been a pleasure to have these outstanding individuals with us. If I were to take a couple of lines from them, Tika says, home sweet home. Lorna says, don't give up when you come. This has been Diaspora Weekly. Thank you for watching. See you next week.